Zara Okechukwu woke up before dawn, as she did every day, to watch the sun peek over the skyline from her balcony. Despite living in a mansion in the heart of the city, she preferred the quiet moments of sunrise over any fancy party or gathering. She brewed herself a simple cup of tea, thinking about the day ahead, another day at her father's expansive corporate empire, Okechukwu Holdings. Stepping into the long hallway, she paused at a family portrait. Her father, Mr. Okechukwu, stood tall, proud, and confident. In the photo, Zara was just a little girl clutching her mother's arm. Now, with her mother gone, Zara felt a deep responsibility to carry on the family's name with integrity. During breakfast, she greeted the staff politely, making sure to know each person by name. Her best friend, Ada, often teased her for being too nice for the cutthroat business world. But Zara believed genuine kindness was what made her father's company great in the first place. That morning, Ada called her as Zara finished her toast. Ready for another day of saving the world? Ada teased on the phone, her tone laced with fond exasperation. I wish, Zara replied with a chuckle. I'm heading to Dad's office in an hour. He wants me to review the new investment proposals. Ada laughed. You're the only billionaire's daughter I know who still looks forward to actual work. Zara smiled, remembering her father's lessons about humility and service. She didn't want to be a pampered heiress. She wanted to earn respect through her actions. After hanging up, she grabbed her purse and made her way to the car, hoping this day would be as uneventful and peaceful as the sunrise she adored. Zara's drive to the office was interrupted by the sight of a commotion outside a swanky restaurant. A tall young man in a worn, faded jacket stood at the entrance, pleading with the manager. The manager's loud voice caught Zara's attention, even through the closed car window. I told you, no more free meals. Pay your bill or get out. Zara's driver slowed down, noticing the scene. Before she could second-guess herself, Zara stepped out. She approached the manager, maintaining her calm poise. Is there a problem? She asked gently, her eyes flicking to the young man, who held himself with wounded pride. The manager recognized her immediately. Everyone in that district knew the Okechukwu family. Miss Zara, this man ate and can't pay. He owes us money, and we can't just let him walk away. Zara looked at the stranger. He seemed frustrated and humiliated, but there was a spark in his eyes that intrigued her. Though he looked disheveled, there was nothing timid or apologetic in his stance. I was going to pay, he insisted, though it was clear he had no way to do so. I just need more time. I didn't realize the price. Without waiting for more details, Zara opened her purse and paid the bill. The manager stepped aside, muttering words of gratitude and apology to Zara while eyeing the young man warily. Thank you, the man said, his voice low. I'm Emeka. Zara nodded in acknowledgement. Zara, she replied, handing the receipt to him. No need to feel bad. We all have tough days. A flicker of embarrassment and relief crossed Emeka's face. Zara signaled for her driver to wait while she asked Emeka a few questions about where he was from and what brought him there. He explained that he had been chasing job leads, trying to make something of himself, but nothing had worked out yet. A strange sense of compassion and curiosity washed over Zara. She found herself wanting to know more about this struggling but seemingly intelligent man, not fully grasping how this small act of kindness would alter both their lives forever. Determined to discover if there was more to Emeka than met the eye, Zara invited him for a quick coffee at a nearby cafe. Over steaming mugs, Emeka recounted his journey. He had moved to the city a year ago, hoping to launch a small business or find employment that matched his ambitions. He had no college degree, but he devoured every book on business he could find. So why the struggle? Zara asked, leaning forward. If you have all these ideas, maybe you just need the right break. Emeka shrugged, a hint of bitterness creeping into his voice. People see me as some nobody without a fancy pedigree or a big name. I can't even afford a decent suit for interviews. Doors close before I even knock. Zara's eyes flickered with empathy. She knew how harsh the corporate world could be, especially to someone without connections or wealth. She also sensed an energy in Emeka, an ambition that shimmered despite his current circumstances. She made a decision on the spot. "Come to my father's office tomorrow," she said, scribbling an address on a napkin. "Ask for me. I might be able to get you an entry-level opportunity. Something to help you get back on your feet." Emeka looked stunned. It was as though he couldn't believe his luck. "Why would you do that?" he asked, his voice a mixture of hope and suspicion. Zara hesitated, then smiled. "Because you deserve a chance, and I can give you one." In truth, Zara's heart told her that Emeka's situation reminded her of something she admired, someone with the spark to transform their life, if only handed the right tools. That night, as she told her father about her encounter, she faced a wall of skepticism. But Mr. Okechukwu, who loved his daughter deeply, finally acquiesced. He would let Emeka try an entry-level role in the company. If Emeka proved himself, he could stay. If not, well, at least they'd given him a fair shot. The next morning, Emeka arrived at Okechukwu Holdings wearing an old blazer he had painstakingly washed and pressed overnight. Zara greeted him warmly at the reception area, pleased to see him punctual and already carrying a small notepad. "You're here on time," Zara said, leading him through the gleaming corridors. "First rule in business, punctuality. You're off to a good start." He tried to maintain a calm exterior, but it was clear Emeka was in awe of his surroundings. The sleek design, the hum of efficient workers, and the aura of wealth and prestige made him straighten his posture, an unspoken promise that he wouldn't squander this chance. They stopped in front of a glass-walled office, where Mr. Okechukwu stood, dressed in an impeccable suit. He greeted Emeka with a formal handshake. "My daughter speaks highly of you," Mr. Okechukwu said, voice measured. "You'll start in the finance department as a junior assistant. We'll see if you can live up to her faith." Emeka bowed slightly, looking both nervous and determined. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best." Over the next few hours, Zara showed Emeka around, introduced him to various team members, and helped him settle into a modest cubicle. The hustle of the office both invigorated and intimidated Emeka. Still, he threw himself into the work, devouring manuals on company policies and financial processes. By lunchtime, Zara stopped by his desk, noticing he hadn't moved. "You should eat," she insisted. "We'll head to the cafeteria together." Emeka looked up, gratitude evident on his face. "I've never been so excited to work. It feels like everything I've wanted is finally beginning." Zara smiled, feeling a quiet pride at having taken a step that might change his life, and possibly hers, in ways she couldn't yet foresee. In the weeks that followed, Emeka quickly became a favorite among colleagues in the finance department. His drive was unmistakable. He stayed after hours to master spreadsheets, consulted senior staff for tips, and sought Zara's advice whenever possible. Zara found herself drawn to his unwavering determination. Meanwhile, her best friend, Ada, grew cautious. When Zara mentioned Emeka's progress over dinner one evening, Ada frowned. "He's ambitious, sure, but are you certain he's genuine?" Ada asked, sipping her drink thoughtfully. "I'm just looking out for you. Some people take advantage of kindness." Zara sighed. "I appreciate your concern, Ada, but I don't sense anything off. He's just hungry for a better life, that's all." Still, the seed of worry was planted. At the office, Zara began observing Emeka more intently. All she saw was someone who seemed determined to prove himself. He rarely complained, volunteered for extra tasks, and even managed to impress Tund, a longtime employee who quietly harbored feelings for Zara. One afternoon, Tund approached Zara in the hallway. "You've been spending a lot of time with Emeka," he noted, trying to keep his tone light. "He's picking things up fast." Zara nodded. "Yes, he is. It's nice to see someone so motivated." Tund hesitated, as though weighing his words carefully. "Just be careful, Zara. Sometimes people aren't what they seem." Zara brushed off his warning, but inside, she felt a strange mix of caution and curiosity. Yet every conversation she had with Emeka only reinforced her belief that he was honest, talented, and genuinely grateful for this second chance. By the end of the month, Zara and Emeka were spending more time together, often laughing in the corridors, planning strategies for small projects, and sharing casual lunches. Anyone looking at them from afar might think sparks were beginning to fly, and they would be right. Mr. Okechukwu wasn't easily impressed, yet Emeka's performance forced him to take notice. Within 3 months, Emeka had streamlined a minor accounting process that saved the company a surprising amount of money. He also showed uncanny insight into investment opportunities, offering fresh perspectives that the finance team hadn't considered. During a departmental meeting, Mr. Okechukwu praised Emeka in front of the entire staff. "We have a rising star in our midst," he announced. "Emeka's suggestions have already improved our efficiency. Let's see if he can keep it up." Emeka felt a surge of pride so intense he could scarcely contain his grin. After the meeting, he found Zara in her office. "Thank you," he said earnestly. "You believed in me from day one. I won't let you down." Zara smiled, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. "You earned that praise all on your own, Emeka. Don't doubt that." Still, that evening, Ada pulled Zara aside. "He's rising so fast. Does this not seem unusual to you? People work for years to get this kind of recognition." Zara shrugged. "He's smart. Hard work pays off, right?" But Ada's expression remained skeptical. "Just watch your back, Zara. That's all I'm saying." Little did Zara know that while Emeka's ambition was real, some aspects of his past remained cloaked in shadows. She only saw the man with brilliant ideas, forgetting how ambition can transform into something far more dangerous when combined with desperation and greed. As Emeka's position within the company solidified, the dynamic between him and Zara began to shift. Their late-night problem-solving sessions turned into genuine companionship. One evening, after wrapping up a deadline, Emeka found Zara in her office, eyes heavy with fatigue but glowing with satisfaction. "You look tired," he said softly. "You should go home." Zara stifled a yawn. "Soon. I just need to finish these last projections." Emeka hesitated, then mustered his courage. "Let me take you out for dinner, somewhere nice. As a thank you for everything you've done." Zara's cheeks warmed. She wondered if this was a good idea, mixing personal and professional lives further. But something about his earnest invitation felt difficult to refuse. "All right," she conceded, finally pushing the documents aside. "But somewhere simple, please." They ended up at a cozy Italian bistro. Over pasta and candlelight, their conversation flowed seamlessly from company goals to personal anecdotes. Zara opened up about losing her mother and how it shaped her desire to help people. Emeka confessed he'd grown up in a tough neighborhood, often going hungry, which drove his hunger for success. By dessert, both sensed the energy between them had changed. What started as simple gratitude was turning into genuine affection. Emeka walked Zara to her car, where a warm breeze fluttered through the night air. "This was really nice," Zara said, a shy smile tugging at her lips. Emeka stepped closer, his voice soft. "It was. I hope we can do it again." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, neither was thinking about the potential pitfalls of a workplace romance, nor the warnings from friends. All they could feel was the exhilarating promise of something deeper, something that, for better or worse, would change the course of both their lives. News of Zara and Emeka's budding connection spread through the office grapevine. While some coworkers found it romantic, others, like Tund, felt uneasy. Ada, too, grew increasingly concerned. One morning, she cornered Emeka near the coffee machine. "I hear you and Zara have been spending a lot of time together," Ada said pointedly. Emeka, still polite, nodded. "Yes, we've gotten close." Ada crossed her arms. "Zara is very important to me. If you have any other intentions besides a genuine relationship, you'd better leave her alone." Emeka's jaw tightened subtly before he forced a charming smile. "I understand your concern, but my feelings for Zara are real." Ada narrowed her eyes, not entirely convinced. She decided to do a little digging. Meanwhile, Tund attempted to warn Zara more directly. "Zara, are you sure about Emeka?" Tund asked quietly, dropping by her office unannounced. "There's a lot about him that doesn't add up. I can't find any records of his background, No solid references from his previous work. Zara sighed, struggling with a mixture of annoyance and loyalty. Sometimes people's pasts aren't perfect. He told me he's had a hard life, Tund. That's not a crime. Tund hesitated, looking torn. You're the boss's daughter, Zara. People might try to take advantage of that. I just don't want to see you hurt. Zara managed a soft smile, though tension coiled inside her. I appreciate your concern, but I trust Emeka. Please respect that. Yet as the days went on, Zara couldn't shake the nagging voice in her mind echoing Ada's and Tund's worries. Every time she looked into Emeka's eyes, she found what appeared to be sincerity. Still, a tiny seed of doubt began to root itself in her heart, foreshadowing storms on the horizon. Emeka's rise continued unabated. He ingratiated himself with higher-ups, took on visible tasks, and flawlessly executed every project assigned. Mr. Okechukwu gradually let Emeka handle more significant responsibilities, including small investments. However, behind the scenes, Emeka's ambitions stretched beyond simple promotions. Late at night, when the lights were dim in the office, he'd log into the company's financial systems, reviewing confidential accounts. Slowly, he pieced together how the company's assets were distributed, noting vulnerabilities. Zara noticed he was staying increasingly late. Concerned, she dropped by one evening and found him absorbed at his computer. What are you doing? She asked softly, stepping into the dimly lit space. Emeka nearly jumped. Quickly, he minimized the screen, forcing a laugh. Just some late-night work. I'm reviewing the financial ledgers. Zara frowned, glancing at the clock on the wall. It's almost midnight. This can't be good for your health. He gave a weary smile. I need to prove myself. Your father's entrusted me with more responsibility. I don't want to let him, or you, down. Zara felt a twinge of guilt. Maybe she was pushing him too hard. She put a hand on his shoulder. You should go home soon. Promise me you will? Emeka nodded, though after she left, he stayed long into the night, meticulously planning ways to elevate himself in the company even further. The next day, Emeka quietly formed a connection with a shady investor, a man known for laundering money under the radar. Through subtle negotiations, Emeka laid the groundwork for a secret deal that could funnel funds from Mr. Okechukwu's empire straight into Emeka's own pockets. All he needed was the right moment to finalize it, and for Zara's trust to remain unwavering. In the midst of growing suspicions, Emeka stunned everyone by orchestrating a grand proposal to Zara. It happened during a weekend retreat organized by Okechukwu Holdings, a private gathering at a luxury resort where staff and their families could mingle outside of the corporate setting. At sunset, under glowing lanterns by the resort's garden, Emeka got down on one knee. Zara's heart pounded as staff members circled around them, gasping in excitement. Zara, he began, voice steady and eyes locked on hers, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. Will you marry me? Zara looked at the ring, her cheeks flushing with surprise and emotion. Despite Ada's lingering warnings and Tund's silent heartbreak, she couldn't deny the love she felt for Emeka in that moment. Yes, she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Thunderous applause erupted. Mr. Okechukwu gave them a polite nod of approval, though his gaze lingered on Emeka with a trace of paternal apprehension. Later that night, as the celebratory toasts continued, Emeka slipped away to answer a phone call. On the other end was the shady investor. I can secure the paperwork, the investor said, his voice clipped. But I need confirmation that you can deliver the company funds without your fiancé finding out. Emeka's eyes gleamed as he glanced around to make sure no one overheard. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Soon, I'll have access to everything I need. In that moment, any lingering conscience he had drowned beneath a flood of greed. He had Zara's heart and her father's trust. Now, he just needed to seal the deal that would set him up for life, even if it meant betraying the very person who had lifted him from nothing. The wedding preparations were swift, given the vast resources of the Okechukwu family. Within a few months, invitations went out, caterers were hired, and every detail was meticulously planned. Zara, wearing a stunning white gown, felt both excitement and a faint undercurrent of anxiety. She chalked it up to wedding jitters, though Ada's worried glances didn't help. The ceremony took place in an ornate cathedral, adorned with fragrant flowers and shimmering lights. Emeka stood at the altar, looking every bit the grateful, adoring groom. Tund, who had quietly volunteered to handle some of the wedding logistics, watched from the sidelines with a heavy heart. When the officiant asked if there were any objections, the crowd remained silent, though Ada swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on Zara's luminous face. She wanted to trust her best friend's choice. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. Emeka lifted Zara's veil, capturing her lips in a soft kiss as the audience erupted in cheers. Confetti rained down, cameras flashed, and for a brief moment, it seemed like a true fairy tale union. Zara gazed at Emeka, convinced that their love would conquer any hurdle. Yet, even as they celebrated at the lavish reception, Emeka's mind drifted toward the next steps in his plan. He made conversations with high-profile guests, discreetly extracting information about potential ventures. Zara, oblivious to his ulterior motives, danced with him under the twinkling lights, unaware that her marital bliss was built on a foundation of lies. Post-honeymoon, Emeka wasted no time. He capitalized on his new status as Mr. Okechukwu's son-in-law, requesting larger responsibilities within the company. Initially, Mr. Okechukwu was pleased to see Emeka's eagerness, though he kept a watchful eye on his accounts. Emeka also subtly nudged Zara to focus on creative and philanthropic projects, effectively steering her away from the core business decisions. Though Zara was a capable executive, Emeka convinced her that her talents were better served in charitable endeavors, which she genuinely enjoyed. Step by step, he pried open the door to the company's finances, quietly restructuring teams so that key figures loyal to him were in positions of authority. One afternoon, while reviewing documents in her father's office, Zara felt a nagging uncertainty. She hadn't been directly involved in the main financial strategies for weeks. "Why don't I see these reports anymore?" Zara asked Emeka. He offered a disarming smile. "My dear, you're handling the corporate social responsibility sector. We have these day-to-day operational reports under control. Trust me, you have enough on your plate. I want you to shine where you excel the most." Part of Zara appreciated the gesture. Emeka seemed to want her to be stress-free. Yet something about his tone made her stomach tighten. Meanwhile, Ada and Tund continued to gather odd snippets of information, a missing file here, a quiet conversation there, that hinted Emeka was consolidating power. Late one evening, Ada discovered a file on Emeka's desk outlining plans for a shell corporation. It was the biggest clue yet that he was up to no good. She hurriedly snapped photos of the documents, her heart pounding as she realized how far Emeka had come and how deeply Zara might be hurt if she learned the truth. Ada and Tund spent several days piecing together the evidence. The shell corporation Emeka had created was funneling company funds into offshore accounts. Bank statements and transaction records showed growing withdrawals from Okechukwu Holdings. Ada was horrified. "This is worse than we thought," Ada told Tund, her voice shaking. "He's taking millions." Tund clenched his fists. "We have to tell Zara and her father immediately." They arranged an urgent meeting with Zara late at night in her office. Zara, skeptical, listened with increasing disbelief as Ada laid out the evidence. She stared at each bank statement, tears welling in her eyes. This can't be true," Zara whispered, voice trembling. "Emeka wouldn't do that. He loves me. He respects my father." Ada's eyes were full of sympathy. "Zara, he's using you. You have to believe us." Zara's mind whirled, memories of Emeka's late nights at the office, his push to keep her away from the financial reports, the sudden secret phone calls. The puzzle pieces now fit together in a way that made her feel sick. Before they could confront Emeka, however, Tund received a message that Emeka was in the midst of finalizing yet another major transfer. Panicked, they rushed to find him, only to be blocked by his new team of loyalists in the finance department. By the time they forced their way into Emeka's office, he was gone. "We're too late," Tund muttered, slamming his fist on the desk. Zara gripped Ada's arm for support, tears streaming down her face as she realized that she'd been betrayed in the most ruthless way by the man she'd helped, loved, and trusted. The next morning brought devastating news. Mr. Okechukwu had discovered the gaping hole in the company's accounts and confronted Emeka. According to startled witnesses, the argument escalated quickly. Emeka barely offered an excuse or apology. Instead, he insisted the transfers were part of a major deal he was negotiating, deflecting blame. The intense confrontation ended with Mr. Okechukwu clutching his chest, collapsing to the floor. By the time medics arrived, he was unconscious. In a flash, Emeka disappeared amid the chaos, leaving Zara kneeling beside her father, tears staining her cheeks. "Daddy, hold on," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm here. Please stay with me." She rode with him to the hospital, her heart pounding in terror. All the while, her phone buzzed incessantly, board members calling in a panic, media outlets scrambling for statements. The scandal threatened to topple Okechukwu Holdings if Mr. Okechukwu's leadership was compromised. At the hospital, doctors rushed him into surgery to relieve the strain on his heart. Hours passed like a slow nightmare until a weary doctor emerged to assure Zara that her father was stable but needed total rest. Zara sank into a chair, overwhelmed with guilt and fury. She'd let her guard down, ignoring the warnings from Ada and Tund. Emeka had taken advantage of her compassion and stolen from her family, leaving destruction in his wake. That night, outside the hospital room where her father lay, Zara made a silent vow to seek justice, not just for herself, but for her father and the company that had nurtured her since birth. Okechukwu Holdings faced its darkest hour. Rumors spread like wildfire, investors pulled back, and stock prices plummeted. Journalists camped outside the building, eager to capture the fall of a once mighty empire. Zara, now thrust into an emergency leadership role, struggled to contain the damage. Even with Tund and Ada's help, they were scrambling to plug financial leaks and reassure terrified board members. As the scandal widened, it became evident Emeka had cunningly transferred not just small amounts, but a large percentage of the company's liquid assets to offshore accounts. No one could locate Emeka, though some speculated he was hiding abroad. Zara spent countless hours drafting statements and meeting with frantic investors. The stress weighed on her, evident in her pale face and trembling hands. Late at night, she'd visit her father in the hospital, whispering updates, even though he remained unconscious. "I'm so sorry, Daddy," she would say, tears threatening to spill. "I was blind. I let him in." Outside the hospital room, Ada and Tund consoled her, but Zara felt she had failed everyone. Her father's near-fatal attack, the company's collapse, and her own heartbreak all stemmed from one choice: to trust Emeka. Yet heartbreak sometimes births a fierce resolve. Hitting rock bottom forced Zara to summon a strength she didn't know she possessed. Even in the bleakness, she began plotting a way to reclaim what was lost and bring Emeka to justice. No one expected Emeka to return so boldly, but arrogance can make a man reckless. He slipped into Okechukwu Holdings late one night, perhaps to secure documents that would finalize his grand theft or to gloat in his former domain. Zara, who was working around the clock to stabilize the company, spotted him in the corridor. Shock rippled through her as she watched him rummaging through a filing cabinet. "Emeka," she hissed, stepping forward, her heart pounding. "How do you come back here?" Emeka froze, then turned slowly. His expression was cold, unrepentant. "You have no idea what I've been through," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "None of you cared about me before you gave me that job." Zara's eyes flashed with fury. "I cared. I fought for you. I loved you. And you betrayed me, my father, and this entire company." He sneered, the charm he once displayed replaced by a twisted bitterness. "Love? This was always about survival. You and your father have everything. I had nothing." Zara trembled, part of her still struggling to reconcile the man before her with the kind, ambitious soul she fell for. "And so you decided to steal and destroy? You could have built a future with me. Why throw it all away?" Emeka laughed hollowly. "I never intended to stay tied down. You were a means to an end. That's all. Now hand over whatever else I need to finalize my deal, or you'll regret it. But Zara refused to cower. She stood her ground, tears drying into a cold determination. Get out. You've done enough damage. For a tense moment, it looked like Emeka might lash out. But footsteps approached Ada and Tund, alerted by the noise. Emeka snarled, grabbed a folder, and fled, leaving Zara's heart shattered anew. Emeka's reappearance galvanized Zara. She could no longer wallow in regret. Instead, she called an emergency meeting with key allies, Ada, Tund, and the remaining loyal executives. They laid out every piece of evidence they had, from the offshore transactions to Emeka's shell corporations. We have to act fast, Zara stated firmly. If we can freeze those accounts, we might recoup some of the stolen funds. Tund stepped up, revealing a fresh lead. I've been tracking Emeka's calls. He's dealing with certain investors known for money laundering. If we work with the authorities, we might catch them both in a sting. Ada nodded. We'll need every shred of proof. Then we'll collaborate with law enforcement to lock him out of those accounts. They worked tirelessly, filing legal motions to freeze suspicious transfers. Zara put aside her personal pain and focused on each detail, showing a new, steely resolve. Meanwhile, Zara also spent hours at her father's bedside, whispering updates about their progress. Gradually, he began to awaken, weak but lucid enough to understand the gravity of the situation. Though his voice was frail, he gave Zara a look of pride and relief. He saw in her eyes the iron will to save the company and herself. Fight back, he whispered, his words choked with emotion. Don't let him win. Zara clasped his hand gently, tears of determination shining in her eyes. I won't. I promise. She could feel her strength growing, fueled by the lessons of betrayal and the unwavering support of those who truly loved her. While Zara and her allies prepared their legal offensive, Emeka found himself in hot water with his shadowy investors. Word reached him that international banking authorities were scrutinizing the funds he'd transferred. Though he managed to access some of the money, red flags popped up in multiple jurisdictions. Desperate, he arranged a covert meeting with the investors, hoping to salvage his cut. They met in a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city, away from prying eyes. Emeka paced anxiously before three men in dark suits. I told you I'd have the funds, Emeka insisted. But the Okechukwus are putting up a fight. We just need more time. One of the investors slammed a briefcase on a nearby table. Time is exactly what we don't have. Either you deliver, or we cut our losses, and you. Fear flickered across Emeka's face. The men stared at him with cold malice, making it clear they wouldn't hesitate to turn him in, or worse, if he couldn't produce results. For the first time, Emeka realized how alone he was. He had no allies left, no friend to help him. Even the fortune he'd stolen was slipping from his grasp, entangled in legal and criminal complications. Meanwhile, in a stroke of poetic justice, Zara and Tund, together with government officials, intercepted crucial documents. They secured an injunction that froze Emeka's main offshore accounts. By the time Emeka tried to move the money again, he discovered it was inaccessible. Rage and panic warred within him. All the power he had craved, the wealth he had risked everything for, vanishing under his very nose. And the people he had allied with now viewed him as a liability. The stage was set for his final downfall. Sensing that Emeka's empire of deceit was unraveling, Zara arranged a final showdown in the boardroom of Okechukwu Holdings. Armed with legal documents, Ada and Tund flanked her as she confronted the board of directors to announce their plan for salvaging the company. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew the fate of Okechukwu Holdings hung in the balance. We have identified the accounts holding our assets, Zara explained, clicking through a presentation. By cooperating with the authorities, we've managed to freeze the bulk of Emeka's illegal transactions. We're filing charges against him for fraud, embezzlement, and financial misconduct. A murmur of relief and anger swept through the room. The board members nodded, expressing their support. Emeka, who had been summoned under false pretenses, suddenly strode into the boardroom, eyes blazing. He realized too late it was a trap. Members of law enforcement stepped out of a side hallway, ready to arrest him. "You can't do this," Emeka spat, glaring at Zara. "All I ever wanted was what I deserved." Zara met his gaze, her voice steady though her heart pounded. "You deserved a second chance, Emeka, and I gave you that. But you chose greed over love, betrayal over trust." Emeka lunged for the folder containing evidence, but Tund intercepted him. The law enforcement officers quickly stepped in and cuffed him. Before being led away, Emeka locked eyes with Zara one last time, his expression a volatile mix of fury, regret, and fear. "You'll regret this," he threatened, but his words sounded hollow, like the desperate cry of a man who had gambled and lost. Zara watched as the officers escorted him out. She felt no triumph, only a bittersweet sense of closure. He had taken so much from her, but in that moment, she realized he had lost far more: his freedom, his dignity, and any chance of real happiness. With Emeka in custody and the stolen funds largely recovered, Zara poured her energy into rebuilding Okechukwu Holdings. Under her leadership, and with the renewed confidence of the board, the company began a meticulous recovery process. She spearheaded ethics reforms, established transparent financial procedures, and launched outreach initiatives that underscored the company's renewed commitment to integrity. Mr. Okechukwu, though still regaining his strength, beamed with pride as he observed his daughter's transformation. She was no longer the soft-hearted heiress who assumed everyone's intentions mirrored her own. Instead, she had become a compassionate yet sharp-minded leader who balanced kindness with caution. Ada and Tund stood by her side every step of the way. Their unwavering support reminded Zara that true loyalty still existed in a world filled with opportunism. Tund, freed from the burden of unspoken feelings and overshadowing suspicion, devoted himself to helping Zara restore the company's legacy. Ada, always fiercely protective, breathed a sigh of relief knowing Zara had found her footing again. Finally, one crisp morning, Zara walked through the newly renovated foyer of the company's headquarters. Sunlight streamed through towering glass walls, symbolizing a fresh start. She paused to address the assembled staff. "We survived betrayal," she said, her voice resonating with quiet power. "And we've come back stronger. From this day forward, Okechukwu Holdings will stand as a testament to resilience and honor." Thunderous applause echoed through the building, marking the dawn of a new era. Late that afternoon, Zara took a moment to herself in her office. She leaned back in her chair, recalling the roller coaster of emotions she'd endured: kindness extended, trust broken, heartbreak suffered, and redemption earned. Though her heart still bore scars, she understood now that those scars were badges of wisdom. In the end, Emeka's betrayal, devastating though it was, had ignited a fire in Zara that would guide her onward. She had lost a false love, but gained an unbreakable sense of self. And as she gazed at the distant horizon from her window, she felt certain that her best days, the company's best days, were still to come. "I'm stronger than before," she whispered to the empty room, a gentle smile curving her lips. "And I won't let anyone take that away from me again." The end.